For sages in India, all beings are Satchitananda. Sat means to be, being. Chit is consciousness. Ananda means bliss. And yet, we don't feel like we feel it. We don't feel like we're living it. We make efforts to reach that happiness, this blissfulness. Yet, in reality, it's much simpler than what it appears. You might have read that we've been seeking for 17 and 15 years, but the truth is, it's really simple. We're a little bit like, it's a metaphor, it's a bit like a fish in the ocean seeking water, looking for water. That's really how it is. The truth is, how the fish, which is entirely made of water, same as us, we are made mostly of water. So the fish is made of water, he's in the water, but it doesn't realize that the water is around, but he can't feel it. He's seeking for water, but he can't feel it because it can't be part of his perception because it is what he is. So the solution is not in, doesn't. You can't find a solution in the senses or in the more subtle sensations like energetic or. It is so us that we don't see it in a way. There's the often used metaphor. The eye doesn't see itself. That's a bit like that. We look for, we seek, we try and reach something, reach happiness. So we go through senses, and after we've been through many experiences, and after we get fed up with that because there's no permanent joy in that, so we try and find it within, but it's the same. We run after spiritual experiences and energetic experiences. So after a while, we ask ourselves, what is permanent, what is still in our experience? A permanent happiness can't depend on perception that are impermanent. So we have to find what is prior. All perceptions, what is pre-existent to whatever is. So what is it? Don't think that you're just going to sit and listen. What pre-exists to whatever is? Consciousness? Yeah. Beingness? Yes. Consciousness? Beingness? She's a good listener. She's a good girl. How does the fish can find water? How consciousness realize that it is consciousness? How can you do that? Instinct? Instinct? You might want to talk about intuition or a deep impulse, but instinct is more about... it's more of an animal impulse. But this inner or impulse or the impulse from the heart is always where it happens because the mind can't find it. The heart knows it, but not the mind. You can play with nice concepts, you can play with with the imagination, there can be an enjoyment in imagining that you're floating within light, but it's not enough. You need a direct experience. What we look for is really to live it. It's not enough to know. We've been convinced intellectually that we are truth, joy, love. This is not what we want. What we want is live it. So there's something there that is important. It's discernment. Very neat discernment between what fluctuates, what's impermanent, so what can't give you permanent joy because it is impermanent, and what is still permanent, fixated, unmovable. And what's permanent and stable is beingness, consciousness, the conscious of beingness, or the feeling of being. Well, feeling can be associated to a sensation, so the mind doesn't notice that. To the mind, the mind just loves what's new. The mind seeks more. Ego, mind. Is it the same? The ego is the sum of beliefs, ideas, concepts about yourselves. It's a package of beliefs and thoughts about you. For instance, you think you're Canadian or from Quebec. It's an idea. It's a concept. Only humans, only the mind can believe that as if it was an absolute truth. But it's not an absolute truth. Like I said, like I usually say, a cat, like Canadian or American, a cat doesn't tell himself, I'm Canadian or I'm American.
Et à force de créer tout un tas de concepts à propos de soi-même, c'est comme si on s'enfermait dans une boîte.
The more we create concepts about ourselves, the more we box ourselves with limiting beliefs. Upadis in India. It's veils of illusion.
Pour s'en libérer, c'est assez simple en fait.
And to liberate ourselves, it's quite simple. You need to just see them and recognize, acknowledge them. We just need to be very true with ourselves, not to tell ourselves stories. But it's asking for surrendering, for vulnerability. We need to let go of this image of someone strong who needs to handle things. There's an integrity there that is total, that is full. An authenticity, absolute authenticity. To sages in India, we are in the Kali Yuga era, so the majority of the earth invests in the illusion, like in materialistic ways, in the egoistic, selfish behaviors, invests in the me, and there's no much room left to talk about what we're talking about. Kali Yuga. Yuga. Which means age, era, and Kali means black or obscure or dark, so dark age, dark era. So looks like most of humans don't see clearly. They want joy and happiness because we are woven in joy. This is our nature. And we try and live in that state all the time, but there are more skillful ways to do that. And most of humans are doing that the wrong way. They think they can obtain permanent joy through objects, exterior, outside objects, and impermanent objects, which makes it impossible. You can't have a permanent joy with an object that is impermanent. So what we do is, it's the monkey mind, as they say. We keep jumping and bouncing from an idea to another, up to a point where we realize it's never going to work. It works with spiritual experiences too. That's the same. It doesn't work either. So we need to find something else. So how do we get out of the box? Can we ask questions? Go for it. I can see lots of children being very angry, very young children being quite angry. Is it linked, connected to that? They want to be live joy, but they see this whole world, which is quite opposite to what they feel and what they want to feel and experience. Yes, the human has constructed a world made of concepts and ideas, and it goes all through the mind, and it's not supposed to take so much room, and we are up to a point where we live our whole life through concepts. We've dissected everything. Time is cut. We've cut out territories, we've cut out space, we've put labels onto everything. We do that with children from the very beginning of their lives, like, what is the name for that, what is the name for that, all those labels. So it happens so that we live a life that is thought and not lived. And what is a lived life is to experience life without thinking it, without going through the mind. And I remember once I was with Gerald, and he told me, look at this orange, clementine, and most of people will see this fruit and see, okay, it's orange and it's a fruit, and I know the taste of it. I know the taste already because I've tasted it before. But the truth is, that's not it. I don't know which philosopher said that, but the name is not the thing, and the thing is not what it appears to be. The clementine, as in itself,
Ok, je pense que ça va être plus clair après. Lorsqu'on a débroussaillé avec tous les concepts et lorsqu'on a enlevé
all the concepts,
toutes les valeurs ajoutées à la
all
conscience,
the added values added to consciousness,
au simple fait d'être, de se
all the
sentir
values
être,
added to beingness, to the very act of feeling this beingness, we reach the essence of what we are, which can't be described. It's not a perception, it's not an object. You can't taste it, you can't see it, you can't breathe it, you can't hear it. Otherwise, all of that would be, all of that are objects. But what we are is pure subject, the subject without any object. And what is revealed right there is the common point, the common denominator of whatever is and all that is. That is what quantum physics is explaining now. Scientists have put it into a theorem, an equation. So they can prove it, but they can't experience it. But it is important that they've written it down. They've actually proven that everything is connected and everything is consciousness. So what's important now is that sages have been saying for millenniums that there's only one truth, and the truth is one, and it is something that has been validated by scientists just a while ago. So all is one, all is in unity. So when we've realized that, when we see a clementine, we don't apprehend it with the senses, we live it. And this is what we talk about when we talk about a life being lived and not a life being thought. We don't think our life anymore, we live it. And one key to live that life without and not think it, is to come back to now. Because now is direct experience. Every time you're caught up in time, it's when you are actually caught up in the mind and in the thinking, because there's no time. Outside of now, there's nothing. Every time we think in terms of here and there, that's also a concept. There's no inside, there's no outside, there's no here and there. There are so many layers. Don't we need to take them out one after another while we're cutting through the chase? Okay. Good. It's a kit.
Soit tu choisis d'enlever les plures.
Either you take out or you peel the layers, or you leave the concept of layers. Layers, and there's no such thing as layers. Layers and you are one. I am listening. I am listening. This is where it is reabsorbed. First step or first stage, the first quality is discernment and detachment. In writings since millenniums, first quality is to discern between what's permanent and what's impermanent. So first step is to renouncement of the idea that I'm going to find happiness in this world and this impermanent world. So that it is a bit hard for the mind, because the ego thinks, but what's going to be left for me? I like this. So it can appear as a loss, but when we realize the essence of what is, you realize that behind every form, it is that essence that is you, that is behind all the forms. So it is you. And you don't lose anything. On the contrary. You realize that really you are everything, but not the character. It's not the character that is realizing that he or she is everything. The person is also an object. It is important to understand that the object, the body is an object that is perceived. There's with perceptions. Thoughts are seen, emotions are seen. What sees? And I'm saying what, and not who sees that, but what sees that. But who would mean someone, but who is a perception, but what sees that. And that is the keystone. If you take away the notion of the idea of there's someone at the center of the existence, then everything falls apart. All the fears fall apart because they hold on because there's an idea that there's someone living a life separated from the rest. Doubts fall apart because all there is life now. So for doubts, you need a future. With the notion of added that, a notion of choices, but only humans think they have a choice. All the rest doesn't function like that. The whole rest functions spontaneously, like squirrels all know that they have to gathering nuts. No one told them winter is coming, and they have to keep food and gather food. And how do they know that? It's consciousness. Consciousness knows. And what's securing is not about, oh, I'm going to do this in the future, but it's more letting life happen on its own. This is where we can rest, we let life happen. It's not... it is tiring to be planning everything, and it's never going to work out the way you want, because it's actually made on purpose to make you realize that you have to let go. Every time you try, it's to control. That's not going to last forever. But we live the very opposite of that. Everything is done to take our power away from us. Well, it actually answers what you were saying earlier on about kids being angry. Kids are like squirrels. They know. They don't need to hear, stay on the chair, don't move, don't leave. There's no effort for them to be happy. They know how to do it. It's the children are programmed thanks to games. When a kid is playing, he's learning permanently. There's a French guy who's talked about the natural development of children called André Stein. I never went to school. It's a book and he's written. And to me, he's talking about the absolute all the time. And he keeps on saying during conferences or talks, it wouldn't come to the idea of someone it wouldn't come to anyone to actually plant something, a seed, and marvel at the idea of, oh my God, it's actually grown, it's high efficient. There's no need for children, it's the same. There's no need to actually put labels on them. I've actually heard children and see children at like around 4 years old that already know that there's something wrong with school. They want to leave school. They feel that there's something wrong with school. They feel that something is... there's a friction. Sometimes children can come into this incarnation with what is called samskaras, that is connected to either you believe or not, but to past lives. So those are tendencies that they have. And sure, so what about it? So they're not necessarily the whole, consciousness realized. Yet children with tendencies are not just consciousness. And that's not what I said. No, yeah. What I'm saying, in their first years, they're less formatted. For most people, what blocks people in the spiritual path are beliefs and conditioning that we believe in truly. And the conditioning can go very far. In an hypnotic state, when you believe something very, very strongly, it becomes your reality. If you think that you are separated strongly, if you truly believe that, which is the main cause of suffering for humankind, this is the main cause of suffering, to believe you're separated. And just to believe that is enough to suffer. The belief that you need something else, something more to feel complete is enough to suffer. Yet, in a meditative state where you are calm and still, if I had asked you earlier, is there something missing? And pretty much everyone would have said no. Maybe at some point the mind would have said, okay, that's fine, but I'd rather have something else now. And that's a conditioning that is coming back right here, which is why meditation is quite efficient, because when we stay still, we can see conditionings and beliefs emerging, all the fears and desires. it is important to see it, to be able to recognize that it is an illusion, it is illusory. If we are pure consciousness at the very core, I accept. But then why consciousness would come in and play in this almost Machiavellic game of being separated and, like putting itself there and coming back here? This is the question this is the big question to me. And I haven't found the answer yet. It's very simple. If consciousness is one, entirely one, without any perceptions, which you are, you can't see yourself. To be able to see yourself, you need at least two to see yourself. So, to be able to contemplate itself and see itself, and that consciousness apparently separates itself. You can't see and know what you are if you don't have any perceptions. You don't see yourself. The eye can't see himself. Can't see itself. You need an exterior point to be able to see yourself. And what is consciousness? That is the question. What is consciousness? Tell me. In traditions, in Buddhist tradition, there's this belief. There's a mantra that you could keep repeating to be able to go back to a place and not get lost into this world. Is it still an alibi, or if there's a pure land at the west, Western pure land, then there's space and there's a notion of space. That's not it. That's not. It's not enough. It could be as pure as ever. It's still geographical. It's still a geographical zone. So. It's the Buddha was talking about that, and we know that he wasn't talking about a physical place, but it's never physical. And why wouldn't you come back? Oh boy. Why? C'est ça, éternel, le souffrance, c'est sûr. Bon, le Bouddha a montré le chemin. The Buddha have actually shown the way, and I do believe that we can get out of suffering through all the years of practices. But at the same time, there's a question there, where am I getting back at? Or what am I? This difficult loop that we are caught into. I know it's an illusion, but you don't want to come back because you're afraid. What do you mean, afraid? Yeah? You have apprehensions. You have fears about what you are. And most of the time, people who are on that path with many practices to avoid coming back to what they are because they are afraid. But that's because there's still that notion of separation that is remaining in them. They have this illusion they are separated. So there is this notion of suffering that comes with it. But when you've realized the self, that question never comes up anymore. You don't care about coming back. You don't even ask yourself that. You don't. Why? Because you're always the same. And it's going to stay in the next incarnation. Yes, it can't go away. You realize your nature. No, because there's no more veils. Yes, you're in the truth, the absolute truth. You're the life, you're the flow, there's no more.
Après, dans le bouddhisme, il y a quand même
In Buddhism, there's still,
entre guillemets, des niveaux de lecture, enfin des niveaux de compréhension, il y a des grilles de lecture.
Quote unquote, levels of reading, of understanding. It can be understood in different ways.
Il faut s'ouvrir suffisamment.
We need to open ourselves enough to be able to understand the Buddha. And he was saying a lot of different things, and there's different plans of understanding, or levels. But there's no fear to have if the impulse is to reincarnate, then it reincarnates. It's not a problem, really. Is our level of consciousness, can we go back or go on, or can we? You need to understand that there's no level in no levels in consciousness. It's unchanged and unmoving, and it doesn't evolve. It doesn't devolve. It's pure, perfect. It's unborn, like Gerald says. It's not inscribed in a circle of births.
Mais ça, c'est ça qui est très intéressant. Qu'est-ce qui te fait croire que t'es pas pur?
That's interesting. What makes you believe that you're not pure?
C'est la vraie question.
That's the real question.
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a?
Il faut encore été voir.
Well, I didn't go, and I didn't have a look really.
Mais t'as même pas à purifier, reconnais-le comme faux, c'est suffisant.
You don't have to purify anything, just recognize that the veil is wrong, is false, it's an illusion. You don't have to do anything, just see that it's wrong.
Oui.
Non.
So there's no coming back or
Non, on revient pas en arrière.
backwards or no, it's not possible.
Mais revenir bébé, c'est plutôt bien.
But to come back, to become a baby again, like.
Bibite. Ok. Bibite. Alors, bibite, je sais pas, mais en tout cas, bébé, c'est...
I don't know about bibit, but baby, that's nice to be in a state of a baby.
La réalisation du soi, c'est vraiment
realizing the self is like the state of a child, a baby that is unconditioned, about 2 or 3 months, no notions of time, space, no distinctions. So it's society that imposes us ways of behaving and beliefs, and but it is part of a game. It is an experience to go through. It's just an experience to go through. Society. There's something that is global in that. Consciousness plays the game of tasting and experimenting itself. It leaves all sorts of experiences that are more and more elaborate or complex, can go quite far into complexity. What's important to understand is that human can realize and become aware of being consciousness. There are 3 miracles in life. Is to be, which the mind doesn't really take notice of, but it's quite a miracle to be. You don't know how, but you are. Then there's to be conscious of being, consciousness of being, and the last miracle is to be conscious of being consciousness. And Gerald adds conscious, to be conscious of being consciousness, conscious of itself. There's only humans on this planet have the capacity of recognizing that they are consciousness and live as consciousness. This is what differentiates us from animals, right? Yes. They are, and animals are quite sophisticated, but they don't have this faculty of discerning what's real and unreal in the way that yogis talk about what never fluctuates in the real.
Ça veut pas dire qu'ils sont inférieurs à nous.
Doesn't mean they are inferior. There's no levels in consciousness. So they're not beside us, or there's the same consciousness in a plant, in a rock, and in you. Even in physics, if you zoom in a microscope, if we zoom into the chair or into your body, we see a light, we see information that flows. We don't become being, you already are. You already are beingness. There's no more dissociation between the chair and you. It's just unified, entirely unified. You're not here anymore as an individual. You're everywhere, but not as an individual. What happens for most people, we've learned that we are a body with a brain inside it, and within the brain there's a consciousness. And we need to handle our lives. Indeed, this is what we are taught. Up to a point where we realize that we don't have to earn our lives, earn money, and because we are life. It's a comprehension and understanding. It is an understanding. We're not an individual given a personal consciousness, as if there's your consciousness and my consciousness. What we have in the mind are objects. That's not fundamentally what we are.
J'achète ça, moi. J'achète ça.
Everything changes there. You keep saying there's a conditioning there. There's a bit of conditioning when you talk. You say what we have in the head, but do your thoughts really appear in your head? Can it be validated? Really? It's really important to understand that. Earlier on, I was talking to someone, asking, how do we welcome fear? When you realize that the fear is not happening inside you, but something that goes through you, as same with thoughts, it's just going through a space. You're not carrying emotions and thoughts, or they are appearing, we don't know where, but it's not inside us. There's no this body. To be able to think that you're working, you need the idea of a worker. You need to conceptualize someone who is working. Same with meditation. You need someone who's meditating to think that you are meditating.
Pour faire un parallèle avec ce qu'on disait
to make a parallel with what we were saying, a child is playing all the time, constantly, and if you let him do it, let him go, he will never stop playing. And if you would really let him do what he wants, he would play all the time. And the difference between playing and working is that we've actually forced someone, a child, to do something at a certain time. But a child would naturally want to learn how to count, how to learn to read, because he would realize that he needs it to be able to interact with the world. But he would do it as a game. I've actually wanted to learn music when I was 16, and I really wanted to do that. So I stopped everything and I actually get into that. And I went into music school. Most of children there started, or teenagers there started when they were 6. In France, you have to know that if you're 6 or 7, when you go into music, you are told that you're too late. Your life is over. I'm kind of exaggerating there, but I actually wanted to go into music, so I had to actually catch up time. But because I wasn't forced into it, and most of the time we tell children, all right, you're going to do this violin, or to learn the music is actually boring to them, but I've actually learned it in 3 months because it was so much fun for me that it was very easy for me to learn it. If you go through inspiration, impulses, everything becomes easy. And it's the same with everything. If you start a company, or if you work in a company, and if you are forced into it, and there's no joy in that, do you think it's going to be easier than if you do that with your heart fully open, and everyone around you feels it? I feel like all those people who are trapping themselves in those games, well, it does ask a lot to actually get out of this game, in a way. It is asking for a bit of courage. Yes. Maybe a few incarnations are necessary to get out of it. At least there's this courage. It asks for courage not to fall into this illusion, collective hypnosis, and to follow your heart. I've always been like that. Reason why problematic of human suffering is usually an emotional that hasn't been welcomed in the past, or doubts about the future. People often ask me, what should I do? They don't know what to do in life. They're lost. And that's because they're listening to the outside sounds, noises of the world, and they don't know how to listen to themselves. So just come back to silence, like the blank screen. Just stop thinking and let it arise. What is it that I really want? We know that we want a state of being. There's those games that we've been playing in another satsang. Just imagine that this body dies and you've got 4 new lives. So what do you want to do with those 4 new lives is what you've always wanted to do. And if you actually try it, it would go very easily. We think on the opposite side, we think that we're missing all the conditions to actually achieve, but the universe is working the other way around. First, there's an impulse of the heart, and then the whole rest is coming up, like money or relations, or it's abundance. It's called abundance. First, see what really resonates with you, and then follow the flow. And it is going to align.
Ben, en fait, ouais. Ouais. C'est... Est-ce qu'on va accepter une vie de il faut?
Est-ce
qu'on accepte une vie de il faut?
Are we going to accept a life of I have to, I need to? Do we really want to live that kind of life? No.
Donc là, il y a un discernement
Good.
là aussi.
So there's a discernment there to be. You haven't chosen your tastes, you haven't chosen what you like in life.
Qui fait partie, qui a sa place. Tout a sa place.
Everything has its place. There's no randomness. It is all perfect. I've always been quite clear with what I wanted, but it was quite an advantage for me. But at first it was hard because you're rejected. And you don't know why you're being rejected. Well, that's the goal of all of that is not material. The goal of this life.
Non. Non, il y a rien.
C'est une vision, ça.
Oui.
There's nothing to me that is, I know it sounds strange, but we discern from, material or spiritual. I even said, material and materialistic and spiritual. But to me, even if I say spiritual, it's only a word. There's only consciousness or spirit everywhere, like quantum physics says. There's no differences, only consciousness everywhere. The only difference is that consciousness crystallizes itself more into this manifestation, but atoms don't touch themselves. So we live in a vibratory world, not materialistic one. As long as we believe in a solid body, we will still believe that what we carry within us are true. All the contractions or emotions are real, but what happens is there's a contraction of vibrations within a field of consciousness. Everyone feels when they close their eyes is not a body, is a space, limitless, borderless. You can try it now. It's very easy. Just try it now. There's no limit to ourselves. And perceptions, vibratory perceptions appear. And it is not a concept, it is the truth. And it is lived as that. But we think it's different because we add an image onto it. But there's no experiences of a limit, of a contour of yourself when you close your eyes. It's not lived, it's not experienced really. And when we apprehend that, when we see that, when there's no more contours, then everything appears within a space, so to say, because it's infinite and it's conscious. And that is love. To realize that in this space, all is made of this same consciousness, quote unquote, subtract substance. But it's more subtle than even this subtle substance. Same with the fish in the ocean. It's very simple. We are floating in it. But because it's not a perception, we don't apprehend it. It's too obvious. So there's no physics as we think it. No, there isn't. Okay.
Non, c'est pas Pierre.
That's all right. Yep, that's all right.
Tout est vibratoire.
All is vibrations.
Les couleurs, c'est des vibrations.
Colors are vibrations.
Les sons, c'est des vibrations.
Sounds are vibrations.
Les objets, c'est des atomes en vibration.
Are made of atoms in vibration. It's all vibration.
Il n'y a rien de solide.
Nothing is solid.
Et ce qui est appréhendé par les cinq sens, sur l'échelle des
And what is
vibrations,
apprehended by all the senses,
en comparaison et c'est infini de chaque côté.
It's, what is perceived is like this compared to the infinity of what we are. Realizing what we are can't be apprehended by the senses, and nor with the mind, because it's also vibrations. Are there levels in we don't vibrate more when we realize the self? Are we conscious of being vibrating? Vibration is an experience, a perception within consciousness. It was the very first separation. This first separation is there. In the beginning was beingness. Metaphorically, we could say that there's beingness that doesn't fluctuate, we could say that it's a point that is still, a beingness, a point of beingness that is stable and still. And for this point to recognize itself, it created vibrations, positive and negative, and then it accelerated. So it created frequencies, and frequencies densified and densified. So thoughts are very subtle vibrations, and you can feel them into the physical world. You know, you think about love, it opens you, it vibrates higher and quicker. And if you have thoughts that are sad or more dark, it vibrates more slowly, and you can feel it more densely in the body. But to realize the self is to actually get out or exit all those vibrations. What you are is prior to all the vibrations. It's underneath, in a way. It's quite hard to explain because it's so there. It's hard for the mind to conceptualize, which is why you can't get it through the mind. The role of the mind is to conceptualize. It doesn't know how to do anything else. He can't conceptualize, but he can't even apprehend it at all. It's a finite object, the mind. And we are talking about something that is infinite. How could you grab a tool and to try and apprehend something that is infinite, a finite tool? And infinite is not something that keeps on, expanding. The mind thinks that it is something that is very far in time and that is expanding in space, but no, infinite means there's not even a process of birth. It's not even emerging. There's no creation, no end and no beginning. It's not even a circle. I know what you mean, but it's still a concept. It's out of concept. There's no circles, no triangles, no squares. If you try to imagine the infinite, you can't. You just can't. Settled. Yeah, eternity is quite long, especially at the end, like someone said. Especially near the end. Eternity is always here. Infinite is always here. In direct experience is right here, now. Now is infinite. Is the infinite. Now. Now does now start somewhere. Look into your experience. Where does now start? Is there an end to now? Can we? It is so very us that we can't get out of now. Now is being. It's synonymous. If you can apprehend now with taking away all the perceptions, all the objects, all that is perceived, now, this beingness, that's it, that's what you are. And everything appears within that. But the mind is capable of categorizing all the nows. It talks about nows, but there's only one now. And he's going to put on, better nows than some. That's because we confuse the content of now with now. But now is consciousness that contents everything. And now is not affected by anything. Or consciousness, beingness, is not affected, like the space is not affected by all the objects that are appearing within that space. Or the silence is not affected by sounds. Silence is quite a good. Silence is not only the silence of sound of the ears, but there's also the silence of the mind, silence of the emotions, and the silence of not even the silence of vibrations, no more frequencies, nothing. When those experiences of deep silence arise, why isn't it staying there? What makes you think that it's not there anymore? Okay. Well, afterwards, we re-identify ourselves. It doesn't stay there. We can see it, we can taste it, but it's not staying. No, it's always there. Look. But why do we put layers back on them? Because it depends where you're going to put your attention onto, where you're going to put your attention or turn your attention onto. Depends on how you believe. Depends on the way you believe in.
Dans une pièce qui est totalement silencieuse,
in a room that
il y a
is
des gens qui rentrent et qui
silenceful,
se mettent à faire la fête. Est-ce que le silence, il est
people
encore là,
come
ou il est
in
plus là?
and start having a party. Is silence gone or is it still here?
Pas avec la tête.
Don't think with the mind.
T'as compris la question?
Did you get the answer? Did you understand the answer?
T'es pas là?
I'm not there.
C'est bien, c'est bon signe.
That's a good sign.
Reste là où t'es pas.
Well, stay where you're not.
Ouais. Là où t'es pas, c'est là où t'es le mieux.
Where you're not is where you are the best. Those French guys will drive us nuts. It's good. The switch. It's going to switch.
Oui. Oui. Mais c'est vrai qu'il y a...
When you reach that state, well, there's nothing in terms of perceptions, but still there is beingness. You can't explain it. I don't know why we don't stay there. I'd like for it to stay there all the time. You know, you can feel it for a while and you're certain of it, and then there's a depression coming up because that's because there's a tension within yourself that you haven't seen yet, and it makes you believe that it's not there yet, and you're trying to reach it through a state of a silent mind, but this is not the end. A silent mind is not the end of the path. Realizing the self, there's always a mind. I need a mind to be able to talk to you right now, to act. What changes is you're not identified at all anymore. The difference is, like I said, this metaphor, the water, you put oil and water in a glass. If you mix them, if you mix it fast enough, it feels like just one thing. So consciousness is absolutely fused into this idea of this illusion of oil. You know, this. You know, they think that the body with consciousness, they think that they are the thinker. But when the metaphor is when you stay still and the water and oil separate themselves from one another, and which is why there's so many practices about staying still, and you realize there that there's water was always there. You can't lose it. It's impossible to lose it. Yesterday in Satsang, she was very tired and she wanted a direct experience, and we just said, just realize, be aware that you're not the perceptions, but be aware that you are what is perceiving the perceptions. You're not the body, you're not what you perceive. You are what is in you perceiving what appears. You're not what you're looking at, you are the perceiver, you are what is perceiving. You are this I am without adding anything. This is what liberates. We do feel a peace right now. It does let go. It does help right now. What's difficult is that we believe that we think we are carrying what we identify with. We think that we carry that. But we don't have to carry anything. And most of the time we carry too much. But there's no need for that. We just add that on ourselves. So is that the reason for all the tensions in the body? Yes. Because all this personal story, all this past that we believe to be true, but is not true because the truth is now in the direct experience, and we carry it all the time, which is why that if you take a baby 3 months old and someone who's 70, for instance, what happens often is people get more and more sadder and sadder. That's because we keep on carrying this story, personal story, to which we've identified ourselves, right? Yes?
Pierre, c'était mon ex-mari, puis Gerald, c'est le nom de mon père.
What's funny is Pierre was my ex-husband's name, and Gerald is the name of my father. So it's quite funny.
Tu vois, la conscience a beaucoup d'humour.
Consciousness is very humorous. I am your father.
Après la... Quand j'avais 19 ans, après la première expérience d'éveil que j'ai eue, je voyais
the first experience of awakening, I saw everyone as my children, included my grandmother. I would have called her my daughter.
Parce qu'en réalité, toute cette
Because in truth, this manifestation is your creation, is your child. Well, you've been going through a path, like you've been working at it, like having practices, quite a quest to actually find that. Yes, I did that so that you didn't have to. To tell you that there's no need for you to do it.
En fait, ça va dans ce sens-là.
Voilà, c'est ça. Ouais.
Que nous autres, en réalité, on a une job à faire. Ça revient à peu près à ça, comme tu as fait toi-même.
Non. Non, vous n'êtes pas obligé.
There's no need.
Tout à l'heure, je parlais avec une personne qui
I was talking to someone earlier on. How do we welcome fear? How do we do that? When we face a fear, well, we become aware. We get.
Ouais, mais bon, à un moment donné,
after a while,
des gens ils sentent des peurs dans leur vie.
Most of people feel fears in their life.
Comment je fais pour accueillir cette peur?
How do I do that? How do I welcome that?
Oui, tu vois. Donc
ça devient un jeu, ça devient pas. Tu deviens plus léger en réalité.
Everything becomes easier and easier. Well, yeah, but it depends on
En tout cas, ce qui est sûr, c'est que
people.
la plupart du temps, ce que va faire
Most of the time,
le personnage, c'est qu'il va
characters, person, people will
Il va créer une
resist
résistance vis-à-vis de la peur qui arrive.
this fear.
Et
It will
plus
create a
on
resistance,
résiste,
and
et
the
plus c'est
more
fort.
we resist, the
Parce que
stronger
la peur,
it gets. Because fear,
c'est comme on disait tout à l'heure par rapport à l'illusion.
it is
La peur
like
doit être
illusion.
accueillie pour être reconnue
It
comme
needs to
une
be welcomed,
Tu
to
peux pas
be
avoir une
recognized
illusion tant
as
que tu l'as
illusory. You can't see an illusion
vue
as
dans
illusory
tous les sens.
if you haven't
à
seen it, as long
360
as
degrés
you
partout.
haven't
C'est comme
seen
un
it.
tour de magie.
It's
Tu
like,
te
you
laisses
know,
encore
360
avoir par un tour de
degrees,
magie tant que tu
you
l'as pas
know,
vu dans tous les sens.
same with a magic trick. You get caught up in
Il
it
faut
if you
avoir
don't
tout
see the
décortiqué dans tous
whole,
les sens pour se rendre compte que
the whole
ça ne peut
trick.
pas te toucher, que c'est
You need to
réel.
see it all through it to not be caught by it, not
C'est
be
hyper important.
tricked by
Et
it.
pour
It's really
ça, c'est pour
important.
ça que
Reason why,
la méditation, ça
meditation
aide, parce que quand
helps,
on médite,
because when we
quelque part, on
meditate,
aiguise son attention,
we kind of
sa vigilance.
sharpen our attention or
Et
vigilance.
la plupart des personnes,
And
si
most
elles
of
ne méditent
people,
pas,
if they don't meditate,
lorsqu'une émotion
when an
arrive,
emotion
elles sont tout de
arises,
suite embarquées,
they
elles n'ont
are
même pas le
caught
temps
up
de
immediately,
s'en rendre
and they
compte,
don't
puis
have
elles
any
rentrent,
time to
par exemple, dans la
realize
colère
that,
tout de suite.
and they get into,
Et puis là,
let's say,
après,
anger, for instance.
Quand on parle de méditation, c'est pas
When
forcément
we talk
s'asseoir
about
dans un
meditation, does it mean, you know, sitting down in a corner?
coin. Ça peut être peindre aussi.
It can be painting or
Sculpter, travailler la terre,
sculpting or
lire.
gardening
Il y a plein d'autres choses
reading.
qui font qu'on est en méditation.
There's lots of different practices that help us meditate. Dancing, singing.
C'est de la méditation aussi. Ça dépend des gens, des personnes.
Depends on people. As long as we are mindful, mindful. Always.
Par
Yep.
exemple, le mental, il se contente
The mind
des mots tout près, des
kind of
concepts tout près.
settles
Par
for,
exemple,
you know,
je suis en
concepts
colère, et puis,
that are quite easy. Like, let's
et
say,
puis c'est tout,
I'm angry,
tu vois, ou j'ai
and that's
peur,
it.
et puis c'est tout.
Or I'm afraid,
Mais
and
si tu
that's it.
si tu veux réaliser la conscience,
But
réaliser que
if
tu
you
es la
want to
conscience,
realize that
ça
you are
suffit pas.
consciousness,
J'ai
it's
peur
not
ou
enough.
je suis en colère.
I'm afraid or
Ce qu'il
I'm
faut, c'est
angry.
voir exactement comment c'est.
You need
C'est
to
quoi
see
ce qu'on appelle la colère? C'est quoi ce
how
qu'on
it
appelle
is
la
made
peur?
of,
Comment
what
ça
it
se
is made of.
manifeste? Au niveau énergétique,
How does it
physique, au
manifest?
niveau mental, qu'est-ce qui se passe?
On an energetic level, on a physical level,
Oui, toute la mécanique, tu
all
démontes
the mechanic.
tout. Une fois que tu as tout démonté, après,
When
tu
it's
te
all
rends compte
dismantled,
que chaque chose
you
est à sa
realize that
place.
everything is at
Et en
its
fait, en réalité,
place.
justement,
And
c'est ça la
truth is,
désidentification, c'est que tu vas te rendre compte qu'il y
This
a être,
identifying
le fait d'être, la
is to
conscience,
actually realize
et
that
tout le
there
reste,
is being,
ça gravite autour,
the
mais ça ne touche
consciousness of
jamais
being,
ce que t'es.
and
Ce que t'es n'est
everything
jamais
gravitates around what you are, and what you are is never impacted by anything.
En réalité, tout tombe en colère.
Oui.
Chaque colère.
Oui.
Déjà, tu peux colère.
Oui, il y a une acceptation totale. Ouais.
There's a total acceptance, indeed.
Tu es embarqué là-dedans. Tu sais, mettons la peur,
Oui.
j'ai pas, on voulait pas, ok, c'est correct. Hein?
Oui.
Mais déjà, avec des absonnés, c'est un peu ça le jeu qu'il y a à faire, j'ai l'impression.
Parce que depuis tout petit, on nous dit de ne pas accueillir,
Ever
de pas
since from
accepter,
childhood,
de
we are
rester
told
assis sur la
not
chaise
to
et de pas
accept,
bouger.
not to welcome, to sit tight and not move.
Mm.
Et quoi faire et quoi pas faire de la vie.
Quoi faire?
We are told what to do and not to do.
Il nous montre à 30 ans tout à l'heure les quoi faire, les quoi pas faire pour être accepté dans une
To be
société.
Ah oui, oui,
what
c'est
to
ça.
do, what not to do, to be accepted in a society.
C'est fini. Tu dis, tu t'en vas ailleurs. Tu veux rentrer en affaires. C'est déjà pas pire, ça. Déjà, t'es moins encacané.
Là, ça doit être du québécois, j'ai pas trop compris.
I don't really get the slang there.
Ah non, si, un carcan, si. Si, enfermé.
Ah, encarcané.
He's talking about being confined, encased. Oh, right.
Mais là, je suis content. Bédaillé. C'est pas ça. Je comprenais pas. Mais il est beau, par exemple, ce mot-là.
It is a nice word,
Oui, oui, c'est...
to be enclosed, encased.
Peut-être dire j'embêté, c'est ça que mon conjoint m'a dit. C'est peut-être j'embêté que ça veut dire.
Je l'ai embêté.
Ça veut peut-être dire, ouais, encarcané, ça veut peut-être dire j'embêté. J'embêté.
J'embête.
Ah,
À part avoir une belle signification.
Moi, quand on me dit encarcaner, je pense se mettre dans une canne. Ouais. Mais justement, c'est ça aussi qui est... Tu peux pas accueillir avec l'idée je suis une personne, c'est impossible.
You can't welcome
Parce que sinon,
with the idea of being a person.
Que toi, la personne,
Otherwise,
tu peux te faire encarcaner justement.
you'll feel like you, the person, can be enclosed, encased, compressed,
et que tu peux être englouti là-dedans.
and you can
La
be
plupart des gens, ils vont pas avoir l'émotion
overwhelmed
parce qu'ils ont la
by
sensation qu'ils vont se faire engloutir dedans.
Most of the time, people don't want to welcome emotions because they feel like they're going to be overwhelmed.
La perception
But in
de
truth,
crispation ou
any perceptions that is arising,
au sein d'un espace.
it arises within a field of consciousness, a space made of consciousness.
Il y a une conscience autour.
There is a consciousness around it that is not touched by it.
Quand vous sentez votre main,
When you feel your
vous sentez la
hand,
sensation de main, mais
you feel the sensation of a hand,
l'espace conscient.
but you also
Vous ne pouvez pas trop le décrire comment c'est, mais c'est... Il y a un
perceive
on sent pas clairement
a
des
space
contours
around the
à la main.
hand. You don't
On sent une
really
perception qui
feel
apparaît au sein de
limits to
au sein
your
de
hand.
l'espace.
You see just a
Et une
perception
fois
of
qu'on
something that is
s'identifie à cet
appearing in a
espace
space.
conscient et pas au personnage,
And if we
alors tout
identify
peut
ourselves to this
s'accueillir,
space,
absolument
then everything can be
ça
welcomed.
s'accueille.
And it
C'est
is
pas un
welcomed.
acte. Ça, c'est-
It is not
On
an
ne
act,
l'a
an
pas.
on
action.
ne fait rien.
It is not
Ça
I that
s'accueille de
is
soi-même. Et
welcoming.
c'est naturel.
It is
Et c'est
welcomed
fait pour même.
on its
Le
own.
corps est fait pour évacuer
And the body is
l'émotion.
made for that.
Et si ça
It's
pleure,
made
ça
to
pleure.
evacuate
Si
emotions.
ça tremble, ça tremble.
And
Ça
if
fait
it's
partie du processus.
Trembling, shivering,
Et
or
on
if
laisse
it's crying, we just let things. We just let the body do its own thing.
Moi, actuellement, je suis sortie du marché du travail traditionnel.
I'm actually, at the moment, out of the working world. I could feel and see lots of pressure, and I can see people, dropping out of it because of burnout and lots of depression. I can see that collectively there's something is happening, and I'm out of it. I can't see myself going into that. I'm refusing it, actually. And I would like to help. I don't know how. What we're talking about now, that's not happening into the working world, but I can see people, more and more people getting depressed or anxious or having back problems. I'm guessing it's the same in France, but it's
À l'échelle aussi en France.
yeah, same in France. I feel questioned by that. I want to help those people. And I like to do a little bit more than what I do presently.
Il n'y a rien à faire.
There's
il y a pas à
nothing
sauver,
to do.
oui,
There's
exactement, c'est un
no one
élan.
to save. It's
Il y a-
just an
C'est un
impulse.
élan. Si tu dois le faire, tu le feras.
If you
Sans y
have to do it,
réfléchir,
you
sans y
will.
penser, il y a
You
pas de
won't
scénario.
think about it. No
Voilà,
scenarios.
il y a personne à
There's
sauver, personne à
no one to
secourir,
save.
personne à aider,
No one to help.
personne à changer ou à
No one to
améliorer.
change or
Parce
ameliorate.
que qu'est-ce qui se passe? C'est la conscience qui a décidé
So
de
is it
s'expérimenter
consciousness that
comme
is
ça, ou qui s'expérimente comme
Bien
ça?
sûr.
experiencing
C'est
itself like that?
Oui,
Yeah,
oui,
it's all
exactement.
orchestrated. Yes.
Les gens qui... Moi, je vois des gens là, qui travaillent.
I can see
60 heures,
people
70 heures.
Working like
On a la même chose en
60, 70 hours, and they want to keep going and keep going. And we
Mais ça,
keep on
c'est la conscience
giving
en-
and giving.
j'allais dire, en créant cette expérience.
Consciousness, by creating this, will bring those people to comprehensions, understandings like depressions or burnouts,
Très, très souvent, dans la majeure partie des cas.
and
C'est
most of
souvent
the
à partir
time,
de là qu'il y a une compréhension très profonde.
there's a very deep
C'est
understanding,
l'illumination,
some sort of, we could call that an illumination, or
Oui, parce qu'on est encore à s'identifier à notre vie de tous les jours comme
there's so
en
much
croyant que c'est
suffering
vrai.
there. Yeah, because
Donc,
we're
c'est souffrant.
identifying to whatever happens in our life as being us
Voilà,
and
ça,
being
c'est
that
comme une
to be
espèce de
true,
processus,
absolutely
quoi.
true. So
Mais
it's
ça va pas rester,
a
ça peut pas
process.
rester.
That's
C'est-à-dire,
not
c'est
going to
pour ça qu'il y a
stay
tant de gens à
forever.
travers le
That's
monde
like that
qui
forever.
spontanément
reason why there's so many people in the world that are spontaneously realizing themselves and enlightened,
À l'échelle, c'est énorme.
reach enlightenment spontaneously. And on the world level, numbers are quite huge.
Le nombre de personnes qu'on reçoit et tout ça.
We can see that through people contacting
et
us.
Les gens après prennent conscience que c'est simple, qu'ils ont toujours été ça.
And people realize that it's very simple and that they've always been that and that they've never changed.
En fait, ils nous écrivent.
And they just write, wow, I've been looking for 37 years and I just realized that I've always been the same, I never changed. But who's looking? Who's seeking? Who needs a quest? What is seeking? Well, it's absolutely not consciousness that is seeking, for sure. So who is seeking? So, I don't know.
C'est bien que tu le saches pas, remarque.
Good. It's a good thing that you don't know.
Je demande souvent, c'est qui cherche ça? Je sais pas.
I don't know.
Déjà, regarde, prends n'importe quel mouvement de recherche.
Take any sort of motion of, like movement of or impulse of seeking. What is it that you look for? Anything that you might, seek or look for.
On va dire la paix.
Let's say peace.
Donc il y a
there's
quelque chose, quelqu'un où tu crois que c'est pas là.
Something or
Tu crois que c'est pas déjà là.
someone that thinks that it's not there because it's not there. You think it's not there. Well, it's not permanent all the time. Why?
Non, pourquoi tu crois que c'est pas
Why why isn't it permanent? No, why do you think it's not permanent?
Parce que tu crois au fond de toi qu'il y a quelque chose à faire.
You believe deep within that there's something to do to be in deep peace. You think that you have to do something to be, and that's one of the biggest conditioning on this planet. We need to do something to be, to have something to be happy. And I need to do a lot of meditation to have a lot of peace, to be in peace. And it never happens when you're in meditation. It's more likely it's going to happen when you're peeling a potato or in the toilet or driving a car, when you've just let go of everything. You maintain yourself and maintain the separation when you think you have something to do. Yes? It's when you let go, when you drop everything that, yes. Do you have anything to do right now to be? No. Is there any effort for life to do anything to live? Are you telling your own heart to be pumping? Like, come on, pump, pump, pump. Or your eyes are seeing on their own and the mouth is talking on its own and it's breathing on its own. And it's even thinking on its own. We think we are the thinker of our thoughts, but that's not true. It's thinking on its own. So all is happening on its own. So do you need to tense yourself and No, there's no choice. No, there's no choice. No, there's no choices. No, nothing. It is also, it does also keep the separation on this idea of a choice. Yeah. It is quite obvious that there's no choice. How could there be choices since all the thoughts emerge on their own? So from then on, from that moment, there's no choice. There's no such thing as a choice. It emerges on its own. And you are experimenting everything without even thinking what you're going to experiment. It's just spontaneous. So there's no choice. What happens is there's an impulse that ultimately wants to realize peace, love, joy. And there's also a game. Consciousness plays, and actions are being made. We can choose to. You can choose to. You can choose to experiment whatever you want, whatever you feel like experimenting as consciousness.
comme ça.
Ouais.
Tu peux le faire aussi, bien sûr.
I could actually choose to stop all this melodrama.
Est-ce que,
Yep.
ouais. Mais est-ce que l'idée de
Yes,
l'idée je
but
choisis
this
la paix, tu l'as
idea of
choisie?
I choose peace, did you choose it?
De pas me laisser envahir.
Non, mais
I
j'ai pas
am
compris ce
peace,
que
so
tu
I'm
dis.
choosing not to be invaded by.
question.
Yeah, but this is not what I
L'idée
asked.
qui t'est venue là, je choisis la paix. Est-ce que
I'm
cette idée-là,
choosing
tu l'as
peace.
choisie?
Have you actually chosen this idea?
C'est comme l'impulsion à suivre
Like
le chemin entre guillemets
The
spirituel
impulse
pour donner un
to
mot. Est-ce qu'on le
start
choisit?
this path to enlightenment. Do we
Est-ce que tu l'as
choose it?
choisi?
Have you chosen it? No,
Tu l'as pas choisi.
you haven't chosen it.
C'est là.
Oui,
It happened.
C'est là,
It
c'est
is
là.
here. It's present.
il est présent.
C'est là.
Mais la conscience n'est pas supposée être neutre.
But consciousness
Parce que
isn't
t'entends par neutre,
consciousness
mais
supposed to be neutral? What do you mean by? I'm not sure what you mean
Qu'est-ce que
by
tu veux dire par-
Tu
neutral.
définis par neutre, toi?
What do you define as neutral?
Puis un objet qui est neutre, il n'y a plus rien. Il n'y a plus,
Well,
ni
nothing,
bien, ni mal, ni
nothing
ici,
left.
ni
No,
là.
no more
L'amour,
wrong
la
or
joie,
right.
on va
Non.
dire
Ah bah
plus.
ça, il y a pas de- il y a
Love,
pas de-
love,
ça,
joy.
Non, l'amour, la joie dont on parle.
Well,
elle
the
a-
love,
n'a
joy
rien à
that
voir
we're
avec
talking
le
about
côté humain.
has nothing to do with the
Le véritable amour, c'est pas un
humankind
sentiment
side of it.
C'est la
It's not a
réalisation
human
qu'on est un.
emotion. It's not a
La
sentiment.
réalisation,
It's
c'est pas mental, c'est pas une
true.
compréhension
True
mentale.
love is not a human sentiment. It's not an
C'est réaliser
understanding
que
from
c'est
the
comme
mind.
ça.
It's
Ah,
realizing that
simplement.
it is as it
Il y
is,
a pas de
and it's
condition.
always been like that. No conditions, without any conditions. When we experiment, I can feel this presence all the time,
Ouais, ok.
but there's no more colors anymore,
Oui.
no more conditioned love. There's no more hunger.
Oui, mais quoi?
Yes, but
Pourquoi
what?
tu veux mettre oui, mais?
Why would you add a but, a yes, but?
Hein?
It's
Mais c'est quoi
colorless.
sans couleur? Ça veut dire quoi sans couleur?
What does it mean, colorless? I don't know. I know it's just an impression, but there's something missing. It is as if the heart is not opening. No, there's still a small belief that there's something missing. Could you help me with that then? What is it? What is the
Il y a une
belief?
expression qui dit se rendre à l'évidence. Bah,
There's-
rends-toi à l'évidence.
There's an expression
Je sais pas si on dit ça
to
au Québec.
face the evidence,
Se rendre à l'évidence.
to face, yes,
Se rendre à
yes.
l'évidence.
Ça rend à l'évidence.
Rends-toi à l'évidence.
Well,
La
then
présence,
just
c'est l'évidence, ça veut dire qu'elle se suffit elle-même.
presence
Pas besoin de
is
concept
evidence,
d'explication
obviousness.
ou de quoi que ce soit. Il n'y a pas besoin de se dire il y a des couleurs, il n'y a pas des couleurs. D'ailleurs, en
There's
plus,
no need
tout
to
à
tell
l'heure,
yourself that there's
t'entendais faire quelque
colors
chose
or
quand
not,
même
no
de
colors.
profond, très vaste.
But what you've been describing is pretty
Donc, tu-
vast
tu-
and
t'en es
deep,
consciente, quoi,
and
toi.
you're conscious and aware of
Et tu laisses
it.
quelque part à un moment donné s'immiscer
And you
dans
just let
l'expérience.
something
Voilà.
get in
Alors
the
que
way
t'es déjà
into the
dedans,
experience,
quoi.
even though you're
dedans.
already
Ouais,
in it, quote unquote.
Faut même raccrocher de pensée
ouais,
pour décrire comment on se sent.
oui. Et la question, c'est qui es-tu?
Question is, who are you?
Est-ce que tu
Are you-
considères
Do you consider this
ça comme une expérience ou
This
est-ce
as
que
an
tu
experience,
considères ça comme
or
étant toi?
do
Est-ce que
you-
tu l'affirmes?
Are you considering this as you? Are you like
Est-ce que
affirming
tu es
that
cette
it is
conscience vigilante,
what you
ou est-ce
are?
que tu
Are
penses
you
encore
this
qu'il y a un
vigilant
petit personnage
consciousness?
quelque part?
Or do you still think that there is a little character, a
Qui
little
vit
me
l'expérience.
that is living this experience?
Ouais.
I'm still
Quelque chose qui
attached
s'immisce
to
dans
this
l'expérience.
thinking, something that is
Il passe là,
getting in the
suivant,
way.
mais
It's
tu
quite
l'attrapes.
tiny but it's grabbed on. I just need to
Exactement,
stay
laisse-toi être
still.
ce que t'es.
Yeah, let yourself be what you are now. But who is catching it then? So, but I don't know.
En fait, il n'y a pas de qui.
Voilà.
There's no who.
Il n'y a pas de qui.
The
C'est
truth
des
is,
pensées
there's no
conditionnées qui
who.
te
Those
font
are just
croire, dur
conditioned
comme fer, qu'il y a
thinking
besoin, qu'il y a un
thoughts
personnage
that there's a
qui
need
n'existe pas,
for
en fait,
a
qui est une
character or
croyance,
someone, and it's just a belief. It's just a thought.
qui a besoin en fait
Who needs You've been taught that you need something else, something better, something somewhere else to be in peace and happiness. But that's not true. Happiness is there by essence when we stop striving for, when we stop grabbing, understand, awakening, enlightenment. There's no more grabbing in enlightenment, and there's no more knowledge, and no more goal to reach. No goals. If there's a goal, then there's a temporality. And there's none of that. No goals. You are already that. If you're already that, then there's no goals. I know, you know. I know, but I don't know. I'm convinced. I know that we are already that. There's a trace of a belief, some left that you can grab onto, but you're on. You're on the edge. You still believe there's someone, but there's no who believes that. It's just a conditioning. You need to understand that. As soon as, even as subtle as it is, a thought like, oh, this would be nice to be happy, whatever it is, you just discard it. And when you say yes, but, or who is, this is a thought. It's absolutely a thought. You already know that. I know that. You've said that before. So you can't say yes, but. It's not possible anymore at some point. We just don't grab and hold on to anything. Nothing. We identify a lot with the thinker and the thoughts, but there's no such thing as a thinker with thoughts. Those are just objects that are appearing. But the question is where, within what is it appearing? That is the fundamental question. Because even though when we are in deep meditation, even though if we have, like a quiet mind or very running mind, there's no difference. It's what sees the absence of thought or the hamster in the wheel. What we can say is we talk about a presence, but it's impersonal. Are you talking about the witness? Well, yeah, but it can be identified as someone, but. So the witness can be seen as or grabbed onto as a concept. Depends on the perspective you have on it. So presence would be less of a concept. You will never be able to talk about it and describe it. Which is why we reach a point where when we share, sometimes satsangs can happen just in silence because presence is self-sufficient. And as soon as we get into words and try to define and theorize, it's not possible. How would you describe something that is not entering into a cycle of creation or birth, that has never been born, that's never been created, that has always been? Even if this world wasn't here, consciousness would still be there. It always equal to itself. You can't theorize that. How can you talk about that? That's not possible. Even the greatest sages who've, realized the self are not trying to describe the self. They are it. That's it. It is so simple, which is why we keep repeating it. It's so simple that you just need to repeat yourself that you are. And you don't think about, and you don't attach yourself to the thinking. And by default, this is what you are. This is as simple as that. And just have to recognize that. And there's no need to go through meditation like we've done and we did with Pierre. It's not mandatory. It happened like that to us, for us, but it doesn't have to be the way. But you are already realized. It's already there.
dans cet état-là, puis qu'on a presque plus le goût de rien faire.
Well, what about when we don't have any impulses? There's just this joy without object, but there's still a bit of a grabbing of. There's no more. You say there's no more goals. Then why? You are playing right now. You have an association. You do satsangs. Yeah, we play while being absolutely conscious of being consciousness. There's no goal in that. There's no goal in games. The only thing is, you are the manifestation of consciousness. You are, I am, he is. And there we are contemplating ourselves. And it's just playing the game. Consciousness that you are is contemplating me as consciousness. It's like a mirror, like people would say. I recognize myself fully in you, and in you it recognizes itself or yourself in others, in me. It's just as simple as that. And there's no aim, no goal, no stories behind that. You're not gonna, put yourself in front of kids and say, why would you play with little cars? There's no point in that. It's goalless to a child. He just wants to play. Well, consciousness is the same. It's just playing for the sake of playing, and it's not more. There's nothing more important. It's the same impulse to do satsangs than the impulse for a squirrel to gather nuts. It's just playing, just for the sake of playing. Some play the game of awakening. Some play the game of talking, sharing about enlightenment. Some play the game of something entirely different, or playing the game of just observing. Yes, it's also an experience. It's also a game.
Non.
Ça c'est une illusion.
So to play the game of gathering to be better, no, that's just beliefs.
Ça s'est imposé à moi. C'est carrément comme ça que ça s'est passé.
I haven't decided anything in my life. One morning, about this NGO that I've created. One morning, it's just, I need to do that. This is one morning. I woke up, spontaneously just emerged. I need to start this charitable. And everyone was telling me, I'm going to create this charitable. And people kept telling me, oh, you're going to be the president. And no, not. It just happens spontaneously. I didn't think about it, no scenarios. It just came up within me as if it was had always been here. It is not something that is pre-established. It's spontaneous. It happened spontaneously. I don't know how to explain that.
Le seul repos, la seule sécurité, c'est maintenant et suivre l'élan de maintenant.
The only rest is in just to stay now and in this now and just follow whatever arises now. If you tell a child, have a good life and you'll go to heaven later on, most of children, if they're not too conditioned, they're going to say, I'm not interested in that, I just want to be happy now. Why would he be interested in something later on? A child is so now, can't answer something else than that. Same with this, yes, concept of good and bad actions. Yeah, those are concepts. Yeah, we should just let people do what they want. Yeah. I could give you other examples.
De personnes qui à un moment donné se sont trouvées l'une en face de l'autre,
facing each other with guns, thinking, if I don't shoot first, he's going to kill me. We don't really think in those moments, but if we are truly conscious, either we shoot or not, doesn't matter. There's no good or bad action. You have to do what you have to do in the moment. if you think about it, there might... If you think about it, of course, there's bad and good. Like, if you shoot or rape someone, it is a bad action. I'm not saying that. It's not about that. It's not about on the manifestation level. It's not about bad and good, but... So it's about thinking about it. If you are on the absolute level, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't prevent. It's just consciousness that is experimenting something. It's just. But this scale of values, we've been taught that. We've been just taught that this is good, this is bad, and we just need to clear all those conditionings and disidentify from those thoughts and conditionings and values. And it doesn't prevent you from, creating, people who are fully realized, and they have created NGOs against rape, They are fully conscious of being, consciousness, and yet they are invested in fighting against rape. There's no more good or bad. It can't exist. It's just something that is experimented or that we believe in, but there's no good and bad, truly. Those are experiences appearing within consciousness, good and bad. Good or bad doesn't say anything about the absolute. And I've heard someone having an experience, where there was no good, no bad, and when they got back into the body, it felt so tight. And are you talking about NDE? Yes. My mother had 2 of them, 20 years apart, 2 clinical deaths. She had anomalies in her blood, so she couldn't accept any kind of blood because it was very troublesome. And when she came back, she really used that word, tight, and there's no good, no bad, it doesn't exist anymore. And there isn't. The truth is there isn't. Enlightenment is not a state anymore. If enlightenment was a state, that would mean that when enlightenment spontaneously happens, would mean that it's an experience that is experimented by something. So what is happening is you are experiencing or recognizing what you are. So there's no more experiences, no more. It's not a state anymore. It's irreversible, right? Yes. There's no more going back into the character. No, you can't. You can't. You're fully conscious that it is illusion, that it is a character, that it is. It's not possible. There's no going back. Doesn't exist anymore. There's no more time. So. If you're not the character anymore, you're not into a temporality. Only a character is living in a temporality with a past, a future, a present.
Ça me fait penser, c'est comme si tu ne peux pas mettre la lumière dans une gaine de plastique, mettons une balloune, là. Tu peux pas rentrer la lumière dans une balloune. Ça me fait penser à ça tout d'un coup.
I don't know why it makes me think that you can't put lights into a balloon. You can blow into it, there's an expansion, but you can't add light into it. I don't know if I'm being clear. Do you get it? No, it's a metaphor. It just came to me right now, spontaneously. Right? Because we are light, so I do believe that we are light, so careful, that's a concept. Depends on what you're talking from. This state, when we come back into this tight state, it feels like we're living in this bag or balloon that is very tight, and if you try to put light into it, you can't.
C'est une métaphore.
Ils emploient cette métaphore.
Sages use that metaphor.
L'ampoule avec la lumière dedans.
We're not the bulb with the light within it. We are the electricity. You don't see it with the five senses, and yet it is here, and it's everywhere. Even if the bulb breaks down, electricity is still there. It's like a presence.
On voit.
On voit l'effet.
We see the effects. We don't see electricity, but we see the effects. Yes, that's it. Yeah. What we see, that's the same. What we see is an effect from consciousness. It's a magic trick. Phew.
Il y a comme un vertige à un moment donné qui arrive quand on...
There is a bit of a...
Moi, je donne une phase de grand dépouillement.
I'm in a phase of a great strip-off. For almost 50 years I've been believing in so many things, and I've been seeking, looking for, and everything is being stripped off.
Qu'est-ce qui reste quand il ne reste plus rien?
What remains when nothing is left? Oh, wow.
Voilà. Maintenant.
There. Now. That is what's left. Absolutely. Can I say something? No.
Moi, je trouve que votre affaire...
Well, I feel like your business is...
Votre affaire, ta femme, nous amène un plaisir total.
brings an absolute pleasure. This business.
Il me semble que moi, je n'irai pas ça sortir de mon corps, le monde astral, ces choses-là, c'est pas
Alors, toi, en tout cas, t'as pas besoin de faire l'école de l'humour.
You clearly don't need to practice stand-up comedy. What were you saying?
Je te laisse répondre.
Be my guest. I'll leave that to you.
Vous pouvez répéter la question?
Can you repeat the question? I don't remember it.
Oui, j'entends bien, ouais.
I feel so good in contact with your business. That I allow myself to be playful.
Ouais, laisse tomber l'astral.
Yeah, let go of the astral. Yeah, doesn't matter. Really, let go. Just let go.
Ouais.
Je ne sais même pas si le satsang va pouvoir continuer.
I don't even know if the satsang will be able to keep going.
Ouais, l'astral.
Ah, ça,
Astral.
ça c'est encore une histoire.
Now, here's another
Ça fait
story.
partie des expériences.
But it is
On
part
peut
of
aussi passer par
experiences.
là. Il y a
We
plein de
can
gens
go
qui sont
through
passés,
that, and lots of people
qui ont
have been
expérimenté ça.
and
Pierre
have
l'a fait,
experienced
je
that.
l'ai fait aussi, et plein de gens.
Pierre
Mais ce
did,
ne
I
sont que
did.
des expériences.
But those are just
C'est encore assez
experiences.
proche du relatif.
It is quite
Ouais.
close to the
Proche du
relative.
relatif.
It's
D'accord.
quite close to the
Astral,
relative
c'est ça.
level,
Vraiment.
the astral.
Mais c'est des plans, on va dire, c'est des plans.
Those are plans
Des
of
plans de compréhension, on va dire. d'accord. Mais
comprehension,
c'est encore proche du
for a
relatif. Ça n'est
lack of a
pas
better word,
la
but it is
réalisation
still
absolue.
the relative level. It is not absolute realization. But it does happen automatically the more we get closer to...
Tu parles de quoi? D'être dans l'astral?
To be in the astral? To travel in the astral?
No. Tous les êtres, quels qu'ils soient, le font spontanément. Exactement.
It happens to them
C'est comme ça, c'est
spontaneously.
infus, c'est inné,
It is infused,
tous, hein, tout le monde. On en est conscient, on n'en est pas conscient. La nuit, la majeure partie des cas,
We're not
les
conscious
gens
of
voyagent
it,
dans l'astral.
aware of it, but pretty much
Dans
every
l'astral,
night
font des choses dans
people
l'astral.
go into the astral.
Ça dépend, hein. Il y en a qui reviennent de leur
Some-
voyage et qui notent sur des cahiers, ils s'en souviennent.
Some come
Et il y en
back
a d'autres
and
pas du tout.
are able to write it down, and some don't remember it, but it
Ça peut être aussi un voyage dans l'astral. Ouais, mais ça peut être un rêve aussi.
Oui.
Un
can
simple
be
rêve.
an astral journey, or it can be just a dream.
Ouf.
Mais en parlant de rêve,
Talking about dreams,
vous avez peut-être déjà vu le film La Matrice.
you may have seen the movie The Matrix.
Moi, je l'ai rêvé
I've actually dreamt this movie,
5 ans avant qu'il sorte.
maybe like 5 years before it reached
J'ai resté
the screens.
3 jours dans mon rêve, là, puis je comptais mon rêve, je le dessinais,
I wrote it down and I drew it, and
le film au cinéma.
5 years afterwards, I just see it on the screen. It's like,
Puis j'étais
wow.
avec un de mes copains que
Was with a friend of mine,
ensemble, puis j'ai raconté mon rêve
and
détaillé.
I had
Lui,
told
il
about
continuait
this dream, and all during the movie it was like, your dream, this is your dream.
Intense.
And I was really distraught by it, to be honest. It was like, whoa, how can we explain that? We talk about the astral, or can we actually know that it's like I feel like I directed the movie.
C'est possible d'avoir
It is
des
possible
aperçus
to have
du rêve, parce qu'ici c'est un rêve
perception
aussi,
of
pour les
the
sages
dream, because
et pas pour les
this
sages d'ailleurs.
to sages,
C'est un rêve, et donc
and not
c'est
just
possible
sages,
d'avoir
actually,
des aperçus
it
du
is
rêve
a dream,
avant qu'il se
and it
déroule.
is possible to have dreams of
Avant
what
que tu vives une
is going to
expérience, c'est
happen
possible de
before
l'avoir à
an
l'avance.
experience appears. You can actually dream. You can
Que ce
have a
soit
dream about it.
5 secondes avant,
It can be 5
ou
seconds before
50
or
ans après.
or-
C'est possible.
Ça fait comme, tu sais,
Or
c'est comme un
50
genre de
years.
prémonition,
it's like a premonition.
tu vois.
Bah oui.
Voilà.
Comme il n'y a pas de temps, tout est
Since
là,
there's no time,
directement,
everything
tout de
is
suite.
here already now,
Et on en a tous.
and we all
ce genre
have
d'expérience, on fait tous ce genre
those kind of
d'expérience.
experiences.
Alors après, il y a des gens qui le font
People-
très souvent, d'autres le font pas.
It happens to some very often,
On fait tous ce
some
type d'expérience.
very quite rarely, but it does happen to
Ouais,
everyone.
certainement
But this
intense.
one was very intense, yeah.
Oui, bah oui, oui.
Je vais partager que moi, je crois bien à avoir fait un très beau voyage astral.
I
Je restais
do
sur le
believe that I've
bord
been through a
de la
very
mer.
beautiful astral journey.
C'est allé tout seul.
I just,
Puis, j'étais
went to bed and
avec,
felt like, oh, I'm just going to go into the astral, and just happened.
on lévitait, on marchait pas à terre.
Oui,
And
normal.
we were levitating.
L'air était
I was
cristalline.
with my partner. We
La
were.
mer était cristalline, puis
The
au ciel, il y avait 7
the
ciels
ocean was
superposés,
transparent,
avec
and there was
plein de
7
lunes,
different
de-
skies,
de-
lots of
puis
moons,
on communiquait par télépathie.
and we were talking
C'était une
telepathically.
vraiment dans le
It was
cristal.
beautiful
Ouais.
experience.
Il y a beaucoup d'expériences dans l'astral. Il y a
Lots
une
of
infinité de
experiences
plans.
in astral,
Parce que
lots
c'est
of
le
plans.
plan de la pensée créatrice, donc tout
It
ce
is
que
the
vous
plan of
pouvez,
all the
imaginer,
creative
concevoir, se
thinking.
réalise
So whatever you can
instantanément
think
devant.
about, it will
Mais ça reste
instantaneously
toujours un plan, et il y a
appear.
toujours
It's still a
un
plan.
moi. Tu vois, dans
Still a
l'astral,
plan.
il y avait
With a
toi, le
me,
personnage,
there was
et
you,
puis il y
the
avait
character,
un décor.
and there was
Donc,
a
l'unité n'est pas
decor.
encore réalisée
So unity is
dans
not
l'astral.
realized
Donc,
in
c'est
the
pas
astral.
encore suffisant.
So
Il y
it's
a pas
not
mal de
enough.
gens qui pensent avoir
Lots of
réalisé le
people
soi parce
think
qu'ils
they have
arrivent facilement à
realized
sortir du corps, mais ça n'a rien à voir
the
avec
self
ça.
because they can get
C'est pas
out of their body, but it's not that.
Une petite idée de
Ah bah ça peut
la
éclairer.
légèreté.
It
ça
can
peut
be
éclairer.
enlightening,
Ça peut
yes.
éclairer.
It
Ça
can
peut
be,
être
it
intéressant,
can
ça peut
help.
Ça amène
It is
des-
not
des
the
nouvelles
full
compréhensions,
realization, but it
C'est des
brings
expériences, hein.
comprehensions. Those are
Tu sais
experiences.
que tu mourras pas déjà.
You,
Vas-y,
you,
prends pas le
you
temps,
know,
tu
you
sais,
realize that
ton
you're never
corps
going to
reste-
die,
Et d'ailleurs, après, t'as pas peur de la mort.
and you're not
Comme
afraid
les gens qui
afraid
ont
of
fait
death
des expériences de
afterwards.
mort imminente ou
Same with people
mortelle,
going through
ils ont plus peur.
NDE.
Leur
They're not
façon
afraid
d'appréhender la
anymore.
mort, c'est complètement modifié.
Ouais.
NDE meaning near-death experiences,
Après avoir fait
and
mes
their
premières sorties,
relationship to life
hors du
has
corps, volontaires,
completely
je me suis
changed for
entraîné à
those
le faire
people.
consciemment,
And I did that.
volontairement.
I did that consciously. I've actually trained myself. And afterwards, I actually, every time I heard about death, I was smiling, and I had to actually train myself back to not smiling when hearing about death. Astral has always been very joyful to me, but it's not enough. There's still duality there, and some people can get addicted to that, and some people actually don't want to live their lives, and they want to stay in the astral. It feeds the ego, actually. It's another illusion. If it's only an experience, if it stays what it is, which is an experience, and not take it as a point of focusing and a crystallization, then it's all good. Because a lot of people who are traveling in the astral, because people will tell you, I'm mastering, I've mastered that because I've been doing that for 15 years, 20 years. And a friend of mine who's actually told me those kind of things, actually, I travel in the astral, I talk to entities and guides and there's no problem with that. It's good. I know that I'm realized. I'm not going to come back. But all of that is part of a belief. And as long as it's welcomed as just an experience, then it opens itself to the limitless possibilities and potentialities. And there's something about it's almost like a fairy tale, and we want to get more of that because it's so beautiful. We want to write books about it. We want to talk about it, conferences, and there's no judgment there, really. But we just need to realize that it's just an experience within a million of us. It's an experience. That's it. Because the ego can hold on to that, grasp that, seize. Yeah, sure. Because you can start thinking that you're special. Yeah, it is what happens quite often. When you do it quite easily, when you kind of master that, when you can get out whenever you want, you start believing things about yourself. Other people having, like being clairvoyant or being healers. It doesn't take anything from what they're doing, the actions. The only thing is not to identify as being special. There's nothing more basic as that, really. It is just an infinite part of the whole, and we can all make experiences on that. I've been through experiences. Pierre have been through experiences, even in this room, I'm sure. But those are experiences, and there's no hierarchies of powers or. No, it doesn't exist. No, yeah, absolutely not. It can't exist anymore. If there's no more, you need someone to be able to identify to a hierarchy, because you need to believe in duality, with chosen ones and higher people, and yeah. It does simplify things. Yep. We can get lost into the spiritual world. Yes. Esotericism or occultism can be paths that you go through that are part of this, quest that will make you realize that those are experiences, and what you are is what perceives that. And you will actually see that lots of people go through lots of different experiences, and it's not random that so many people go through those kind of experiences. There is something there. It's like walking all through the garden to actually come back to the simplicity of home. Yes, which is why we can't have pride when there's authentic realization, because what we are is a non-experience, and it is so very simple. It is really without anything. Ma Anandamayi said to realize that which is without everything, and you realize the whole universe. When you realize what is left without anything, you realize
de ce centre où que ce soit, justement.
from which or the essence of what all this manifestation is made of.
Exactement pareil.
We are all the very same. Yeah, exactly. So you can't have a chosen one. Some go through the name of God or saint or you know, and the idea of, you know, God would be more into something rather than less than in another one doesn't make sense.
C'est pour ça que les grands,
why,
par exemple, Saint François d'Assise, par exemple, c'est
like
pour ça qu'il disait tout le temps
Saint Francis,
Sœur Lune, frère Arbre, ou sœur, tout ce qu'il appelle, il l'appelle frère et sœur.
he kept on calling, you know, everything, you know, sisters and brothers, even trees or people, no hierarchies, no objects. And who is God then? That's the good question. That's what is, who is God? Have you noticed that we actually ask your own questions? You just keep on asking who. But
C'est quoi, c'est un poste de radio, ça? Non, mais Dieu dans...
God,
Dieu Jésus, bon, plutôt
Jesus,
dans l'Église, bon,
in the church, it's Jesus is a personification of, but now it's just consciousness. It's another way of talking about consciousness, presence, awareness, with God, source. We can call it whatever we want. So we would be a part of it. No, we're not a part of it. We are the source. Yeah, we are it, the big whole.
Si intérieurement tu
within you,
répètes par exemple je suis,
internally, if you keep repeating I am, you will feel a force, this beingness, and you know it's spontaneous, you know it, it's not going through the mind, it's spontaneous, you can't even explain how you know, it's just that you know that you are. And in the scriptures, all sacred texts,
c'est dans la Bhagavad Gita, c'est
Krishna
qui dit
in the Bhagavad Gita,
je suis la conscience.
Krishna says, among all the beings, I am the consciousness. And in the Old Testament, God tells Moses, I am, tell them that I am send you. And it's not I am with something else afterwards. I am and that's it. So this I am is this consciousness, which is very simple. We can't really say anything about it. When you realize it in its essence within you, as you know, down to the very essence of it, then you realize spontaneously that it is the same I am in everyone. There's no two lives. Life here and life here. It's the same. There's no two eyes. There's no two I ams. The force that the body is moving and the force that makes you see through the eyes and through those eyes and my eyes, there's not two. It's the same force. It's the same life. There's only one life. That's it. When I tell you, I can feel that you feel it deep within. Somewhere deep within you. It is something that is experienced now. And that is love. This is what is love. And there's no conditions there. So all the prayers that we've been, that we say, we are actually talking to ourselves. Yeah, you are the creator, you are the consciousness. So, yeah. This is where it gets vertiginous, dizzying, this, you know, this solitude all of a sudden, you know. Where is Jesus? Where is God? And you just turn back. Presence keeps on making us feel it. Even when you pray, someone who's outside of you, if you do it with the heart, the presence will actually make you feel it in the heart. You will, even though you're praying something outside, you're still going to feel it here in the heart, and it is okay.
C'est une voie dévotionnelle
It is a devotional path, and it's perfect. Conversations with God, those books. He was actually talking to himself. He keeps saying, I am you, and up to a point where he says, talking about the person Neil, he says, it says, you are my body. This is the same spirit, there's no differences. There is a bit of a duality that is still there, remaining. Yeah, apparently there's still a bit of a duality left. But even the body is not separated from even this densified plan, which is the plan that is of manifestation that is densified by consciousness, but it is still consciousness that is manifesting itself within or as this manifestation. There's no difference. And it is lived as just as
amour vis-à-vis de ce qui est perçu.
Love towards whatever is perceived. You see a chair and you see the beauty of the whole universe in a chair. All the beauty. And you can't explain it with the mind. Don't have to try and get it with the mind. You live what is behind the form. It's not even a sensation. It's an acknowledgement. You know that you are behind every form. You've recognized it. You recognize it.
Tu le reconnais en toi, forcément, et la conscience est en toute chose, tu le reconnais en toute chose.
You recognize it in yourself, therefore you recognize it everywhere, in everything. Sometimes, how can we manage? You see a small insect, and there's so much compassion, or it's a marveling. But then, what do you eat afterwards? What do you do afterwards? It's like you've got. You let the impulse, just the flow, just happen. You let things happen, and what imposes itself on you, it's what becomes obvious. There's no rules. There are so many conditionings. All those. And there's also the belief that we need to follow those conditionings that we have, that it's kind of mandatory. We think that we have to follow those rules. Well, I've never really followed any rules. Even in school, there was a writing about me, a note refusing all kind of authorities. Lots of kids have those labels with, troubled kids like TDHA or TDAH. Me, it was disruptive element. I'm disrupting the mind. Can you see the two morons there? There was even a year when they had to actually add pages onto this book, with notes, and I didn't do that on purpose. Never did that on purpose.
C'est pour des gens qui sont très identifiés absolument l'endoctrinement où il faut faire ce... Des gens qui sont très
There are-
identifiés, ça va déranger, justement.
There are people that are very identified, that are going to be really
Ça dérange assez souvent, mais ça
disturbed
dérange
and disrupted by
Ça dérange uniquement le
by
conditionnement,
those
le mental, celui qui est identifié.
challenges. But
Il y a que
who
ça que
is
ça
being
dérange.
challenged and disrupted, really? Who? There's only the mind that can be disrupted.
Parlant de déranger.
Speaking of disrupted,
J'aime pas ça, avoir des bébites dans ma maison.
I don't like having
Des araignées, puis tout ça.
I don't like
Mais
having
ça me
insects
cause-
in my
ça me
house,
cause un dilemme quand je mets le
but
pied dessus.
I can see there's a dilemma
Parce que c'est
inside
la vie aussi.
because it is also life,
Là,
and
je m'excuse.
so I kind of excuse
Excuse-moi,
myself
je vais te
or
dire, comment je fais.
let me tell you, you know what?
Je crois que Pierre doit faire pareil.
And I'm pretty sure that Pierre is doing the same.
Je passe mon temps en fait
I keep
à
on,
enlever les insectes de la
I
maison.
take them,
Avec des
grab them
papiers, avec
with
des
papers
des
or
pots, avec des machins.
or-
Et le nombre de fois où je fais ça, mais bon,
and I
on
just
fait
put
comme on
them
peut, hein.
outside.
Mais le maringouin, il
So
dit,
we do how we can.
Puis là, t'en as marre, là. Puis tu vas pas dire que tu fais pas ça à un moment donné.
Mais moi,
Even, you know, a lizard that comes in
Je peux les
to
attraper, je
grab
les mets dans des
something,
bocaux.
you know.
Non, mais un maringouin, je sais pas s'il y en a
Un maringouin, un moustique. Bah,
Ah,
pareil, j'allume,
mosquitoes.
en général, je finis par le repérer.
Even
Je
mosquitoes.
mets dessus, je mets un couvercle et puis je mets à
I
l'extérieur.
just, you
Quand
know,
je peux, c'est pas toujours évident, hein.
Mais s'il n'y a pas de lien, il y a
turn the lights on and I try and catch it and put it outside.
Oui, mais en étant
But
pleinement
we could
conscient de,
we
en
could
étant
also
pleinement conscient
squash it,
d'être.
yeah, but still being
Pleinement
very
conscient d'être.
conscious of
Voilà.
and aware of being. We could do that as beingness.
Non,
Yeah.
oui, il n'y a pas
There's-
d'état d'âme.
No guilt, no.
Ouais. I have to say that I like chicken. I like eating chicken.
Tu t'es pas posé de questions.
And
hein.
you didn't ask yourself questions, did you? No, it was so good. Yeah, that's it. There you go.
Alors, on finirait plus de s'en vouloir. Tu sais,
Mais tout ça, c'est parce qu'on met une échelle de temps, encore une fois. Il y a toujours le temps.
We put
Tu peux pas avoir de
a scale of
culpabilité
of
s'il y a
time.
pas de temps.
You can't have
C'est pas
guilt
possible.
doesn't exist without
À partir du
time.
moment où tu es que maintenant,
If
tu peux
you
pas
are
être
only
tiraillé
now,
par des désirs futurs,
you
ou
can't
ou
be
doutes.
drawn into desires or doubts in the future.
vous autres, vous n'avez mangé du poulet, vous?
Moi, j'en ai pas mangé, mais
Moi, j'en ai
I,
mangé.
d-
je me
I
serais pas
didn't.
senti cool.
I didn't
No.
eat chicken, but I wouldn't have felt
capable de
guilty.
le tuer, puis le manger.
Would you be able to kill it and then eat it? I don't ask myself that. I don't ask myself that
Je ne
question.
pose pas la question, j'en sais rien.
I don't know.
Parce que ça, c'est rentré dans un scénario.
It is actually getting into a
éventuellement,
scenario.
on pourrait faire-
Would you be able
Ça n'existe
to?
même pas maintenant.
Doesn't exist now. Doesn't even exist.
ça, c'est toujours maintenant.
It is always now. That's it, really.
Toujours là.
It's always here.
Ouais.
Always what is.
Et
Yes.
qui ne peut pas être autre chose d'être.
What is and can't be anything else than what is.
Si les cuisses de grenouille, c'est pas pareil. Pas trop belle.
Des phrases intéressantes.
There's an interesting sentence.
C'est comme les flatulences. Elles se ressentent que dans l'instant.
Reality is like a fart. You can only feel it in the moment.
Alors ça, c'est fait.
All right.
Ça, c'est fait.
Okay. That is said and that is done.
C'est un grand sage qui dit ça, oui.
It's a great sage that says that.
Oui. Je crois qu'on va clôturer là-dessus. Non, je plaisante.
Okay. Shall we just end it there?
On est assez gazés comme ça.
We are pumped up enough as it is.
Ouais. Mais la réalité n'est pas un ressenti.
Reality is not a
La
perception.
réalité n'est pas un ressenti.
It's not feeling. It's not going through that.
La réalisation de
It's
ce
not
qu'on est,
happening
c'est
through that.
justement
Reality of what we are is
réaliser ce qui est
actually
toujours
to
sous-jacent à
realize
l'expérience.
what is always underlying any kind of manifestation experience. So to have something, you need something that is unmanifested and manifested are always there. For sound, you need silence. For objects, you need an emptiness. And it's by discerning that we can liberate ourselves. It might not be as fun as astral plans, but the truth is, it's actually way more fun, even if the mind doesn't take account of that. It is worth it. It is really worth it. It's not even a detour. It is a shortcut, really. It is worth. This is a shortcut that is worth it. Sages are quite smart. Just realize, just for a second, and if you don't like it, and then if you don't like it, just come back to your life. But as soon as it's realized, you can't go back. Keep discerning. Keep on discerning. And if something comes up that is veiling your peace with the idea of this would be better, I need this, just don't believe it. And it will establish itself. This is what we call the establishment of the self. And it reveals itself more and more when we pay attention. And then it just fills the whole space. It's all there is. It is what we call the shift. Yep. Depends. Sometimes it's so subtle that people don't even feel it, but most of the time, the vast majority, there's a shift, and it feels, and it is lived as we realize that we've always been the same, and we know that we don't have to accomplish anything, that life accomplishes itself on its own without the mind that it's only thinking that it needs to do something, and that it's all good just by following the flow. Without, this idea of having, a good project, or this idea of perfecting myself or purifying myself, or, there's nothing to force. Just stay still, tranquil. And people who've been living, big experiences. Those experiences are not their exit door. They can get that kind of trap into that. Yes, because we are running after something there. All needs to be welcomed. Consciousness welcomes everything. It is only just a moment after that the mind will start judge and putting judgments and labels. But to consciousness, the image that is emerging right now is just seen. It's welcomed by definition, by default. And then the mind will say, this I like, this I don't. And it's just a tiny bit of time right afterwards. It's like, well, not time because it doesn't exist. But all those ideas of, judgment or intensity that you put onto something, and as soon as you start believing that you're not into, if you start thinking that you're not in this that you are, if you think that you're not in it, do not try and find it again. Go back to that stage. Or that state. That is the illusion. On the contrary, just accept that it's not there, quote unquote, because it opens the field to all possibilities. We were talking about being enclosed. It becomes an enclosement if you even if the experience is beautiful, just let go of it. Yes, we make ourselves suffer by identifying to this one was incredible, so expansive. I'm sure it was an awakening, it was or something else. Just Just let go. All the beliefs, whatever they are, all, whatever, even what concerns spirituality. And, you know, on this path, even when we have a master, teacher, sage, whatever, even this, you will have to drop it. It is part of the beliefs, not that is reducing the position of the master or what he is, or is not important anymore. It's just that even this makes us feel separated. Yes, that's it. And there's no differences between you and your master. It is the same. Even this drops.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.